Hey now everybody, this is Professor Island, and today we are talking about the Blackboard negotiation for the 213 online course. We'll just turn that off there. If you go to the on-campus or off-campus actually literature courses, the distance said, you'll find the horror literature right here, and just click on that. And it will give you a list of all the elements, and one of them, of course, is the discussion board. And when you click on Blackboard, you will find the class. You'll notice two things right away. The first two you should recognize because these essentially are going to be what is sent to you on the first day when you contact me by email. And it just essentially says read a few things about how to compose a research paper and being aware of what Blackboard is and where the readings are, etc. But basically, you have four things that you're going to be doing for me. Four things you're going to be doing for me, and then one that you're going to be doing for somebody else in the class. So let's look at them real quickly. The first of them is an annotated works cited. You need to decide what you're going to do for your first paper. And you really want to list that first paper over here in the first draft, or just send me an email that say this is what I'm going to work on. The list itself that you want to choose from, if you go back to the website, if you go over to the course calendar and you click on the term paper list, it gives you a list of authors and even works, specific works, but especially authors that I'm familiar with. And understand that this, especially in the movie section, there's a lot more that I am aware of that's in this list, and certainly any of the stuff. But this is stuff where you look at this and say, yeah, I'm good to go. I remember this, or I think this would be a good thing to write about, and our conversation would be very short. If you want to choose something from this list, or something that is not on this list, you need to contact me and say, hey, have you seen, have you read, are you familiar with X, Y, or Z? And then you and I have a conversation about whether or not that's a good choice. As part of that, then, I would suggest you want to post that in your first draft section, just as a post to say, I'm going to be doing such and such a work. And then other people can do the same thing, and in doing so, you'll find people who are either doing the exact same work, which is not a problem for your paper, or at least doing the same author or director or something. So that way, when it comes to peer editing, which is another one of your other assignments, you're talking to somebody who's familiar enough with your work that they'll be able to do that. The annotated works cited is a list of 10 sources that you're going to need to gather together. One of them is going to be the primary source, whether it's a movie or a story or maybe a collection of poems or something along those lines. Something you also need is a biography, and you need a valid biography either through EBSCOhost or through Gale, Literature Resource Center, or even from the author's own official website. And then after that, you need 8 other items that are direct analysis of the work or resources that discuss the essential nature of that particular work, such as, for example, something that is defining a particular cultural viewpoint so that you can apply cultural criticism, or something that is applying a feminist theory so you can apply a feminist theory, or historical information that will help you to place the work within the historical context. Certainly understanding, for example, what's going on in the 1850s in the United States would help you understand some of the issues in a story like The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, especially the role of Masons, who by that time had fallen out of favor because of people's general suspicion that this group that had once actually had a great deal of power in the United States was now this secret group that was creating all kinds of havoc, both in the courts and in the public realm. And this kind of information is what you're gathering together. Not that you're going to use all 10 of these resources, but that you have enough material that you are good to go to actually write a paper. If you cannot find enough resource material to write your paper, you're really shooting yourself in the foot, and you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. If you come up with 10, and again, you have your primary source and you have your biography, but if you can come up with 8 other items, then you're on the right track, and at least 3 or 5 or 6 of them will be of really good value to you, and you can actually write a work. The other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be writing a first draft of your paper. And that first draft is going to be at least 5 paragraphs. It's going to have an introduction and a conclusion, so you're going to give me the overall thesis. And you're going to demonstrate that you can apply at least 3 critical perspectives. For some of you, this is really going to be your paper, and all you're going to do for the final draft is actually fix it and make it a little bit longer. For others, this will be a starting point, and you're going to realize in this process that you need another critical perspective. As part of that, then, once these works get posted, you will then you'll then exchange with somebody and create a peer edit in which you will then cobble together an analysis of the work that you're reading for them, giving feedback on the application of resources, the use of primary and secondary text, and of course the application of critical perspectives. And then obviously your final draft will then be a fixed version that's taking into account my feedback to you from your first draft, as well as the feedback that you might have gotten from the peer edit. The other thing that you're going to be doing, which is completely different from the paper, is essentially providing everybody else with a work to read, to share, to view, whatever it is. And if it's something that can be accessed through the internet, I would encourage you to give us a URL. If it is a work that's like a written work that's accessible in a public forum, show us how to get that. And the idea is that you're going to share something that you found interesting that's in the horror genre, a book, a short story, a play, something along, maybe a poem, even some kind of a short video on the internet. And what you're doing is you're sharing it with us, giving us the plot in about 3 or 4 sentences, and then of course applying at least one analysis. This is only 3 paragraphs: an introduction, a conclusion, and then a body paragraph. This is the one thing where people may decide that they would rather do a video and create a little short presentation video. And if you get that to me, then we can maybe post it in here, and it'll be something interesting. This is a one person per topic, and what I mean by that is that only one person could do a feminist analysis of The Corpse Bride by Tim Burton. More than one person can do a feminist analysis, but they would have to be on different works, and more than one person can cover Corpse Bride, but they would have to be different critical perspectives. So as you look at what's been posted, it might give you ideas as to something that you might want to do, and obviously I will then go through this list once the semester gets started, and basically it's first come, first serve for a specific topic, a specific work with a specific critical perspective, and I'll let the people know who've duplicated that they have to choose something else. Right. Basically, you are graded on the annotated works cited, on the draft, on the presentation, and on the final draft, and of course you're getting a peer edit and sending that to me. But most of this, again, is creating that final draft of that final paper. But the presentation is where you get an opportunity to share something with everybody else. The first draft and the final draft and the annotated works get sent directly to me. The presentation and the peer edit is sent to in between the 2 students who are exchanging, or maybe 3 or 4 if you get a group of people, where everybody gets a peer edit and everybody does a peer edit, and then the presentation is posted right here in this folder. Okay, so hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, let me know, and we will keep things moving along. All right, stay in touch.